Excuse me. Very good. Nice to have you all here for our New Year celebration, and very happy New Year to all of you and to your families and friends. As we come to this new year, we know that there are many things in the coming year which are going to change, and some things are going to change dramatically. Certainly, the administration in Washington, D.C. is going to change very dramatically, but many other things in our lives will also change in dramatic ways, some expected, some unexpected. Maybe there are changes ahead in your career. Maybe there are changes ahead in your families, in your investments, with your grown children. There's so many things in the coming year that will change. We know that every year brings new change. And what we'd like to discuss this morning is how do we respond to those changes? In particular, for the changes we know about, we all have certain expectations. Let me just use the obvious example. So for the new administration in Washington, we all have certain expectations. And it depends on which side of the fence you happen to be sitting on. Some of you may be looking forward to those changes. Great. Some of you may be dreading those changes, also possible. And normal, perhaps, to feel this sense of looking forward to something you find desirable and dreading something you find undesirable. Here's an interesting observation. Those of you who dread the changes coming in the politics in our country in the coming year, those of you who dread it will probably find it's not as bad as you expected. And those of you who are looking forward to it so much will probably find it's not as good as you expected, because expectations are basically our predictions for the future, right? How good are you at predicting the future? How good am I at predicting the future? Forget it. How good are you at predicting the future? I think we have to acknowledge the fact that we really don't know, and that's why we set ourselves up. Either, look at this. Actually, I made a note, just something very interesting to observe about trying to predict the future. Do you know that that is programmed into our brains through evolution? There are circuits in our brains that are wired to predict the future. For example, if we lived 10,000 years ago, it would be really helpful to know what the weather will be like tomorrow. Or if you're hunting some wild animals, it would be really good to predict which direction they might go and how you can head them off. Remember, in ancient times, human beings ate meat. So, our brains are programmed by evolution to predict the future because it was important to our survival. This is what Professor Darwin taught, and this is what science has supported ever since. No one's ever come up with anything to deny or negate anything taught by evolution. So if all of this is programmed into our minds, our brains, literally, for the sake of survival, do you think it's so necessary for survival today? Do you need to predict what the weather will be like tomorrow? You turn on the television set, you don't need to predict, or you get your weather on the internet, there's no need to predict. Certainly you don't need to predict where wild animals are going. You go to the supermarket and you know whatever food you want is there. The point I'm saying, the point of this is to say, yes, it is completely natural to have these expectations, but these expectations were put in our minds and brains for the sake of survival. They're no longer necessary for the obvious reasons, but more than that, these expectations become the source of suffering. This is really our topic for this morning. So if you sit here today dreading what will happen on January 20th, what happens on 20th? That's the presidential inauguration. So if you sit here this morning dreading that day, you suffer. And you may suffer a lot. And even if you sit here today anticipating the day, as we said before, in the coming year, you're going to encounter so many disappointments. Every president who comes makes all kinds of wild claims, and they're never, ever fulfilled. What president in the history of this country has fulfilled all of their election promises? Never has happened, never will happen. So that could lead you to great disappointment. My point is then that we are setting ourselves up for suffering through these expectations, through our lame attempts to predict or anticipate what will happen in the future. Now you might say, but Swamiji, that's natural. Isn't it natural that we're going to think about the future and we're going to anticipate certain outcomes? Excuse me. Absolutely natural, but problematic. If you agree that these by the way, do these expectations have any purpose, have any good purpose or utilities? As we said, in ancient times, they were helpful. In modern times, if you are predicting what will happen after January 20th, do your predictions serve any purpose? I think the only case where such predictions may serve a purpose if you are a professional journalist on TV and you're expected to have these predictions for the future. None of us have that kind of role. So let's admit that what we anticipate will happen, we'll just stay with politics for the time being, what we anticipate will happen in the future year, first of all, we're not very good at predicting the future. Secondly, it serves no purpose whatsoever. And finally, it causes suffering. And I know for some of you, dread, fear. I'm a little surprised by the number of students who have spoken with me about their fear of what will happen after January 20th. And I relate to that fear, but it's unfortunate because there's no legitimate basis for that kind of fear. Here's the point. Suppose we look at, oh, that's interesting. Suppose we look at United States politics through the lens of Vedanta. How's that? That's a stretch. But maybe it's important. And I think given the significance of the change coming on January 20th, I think it's really significant and important to gain a Vedantic perspective on the changes that are about to take place. So if we bring in the teachings of Vedanta, we can maybe find at least three different Vedantic teachings that can help us make sense out of the future and deal with our harmful expectations, harmful to ourselves. First is, if we understand thoroughly the doctrine of karma, whatever happens is the result of our karmas, present karmas and past karmas. Meaning that our karmas at the voting booth, by the way, I vote each year. So our karmas at the voting booth led to the election outcome. Who can doubt it? It's just what it is. You may not like that outcome, but it is an accurate representation of the mood of our country. May not represent your mood, doesn't necessarily represent my mood, but this is a democracy, and our leaders are elected through our desires. How wonderful that is, and that means you have a voice, but your voice is not the only one. Just how an elected democracy works. Now, karma, in fact, interesting to take this karma idea a little bit further. My guru used to talk about karma not just at a personal level. We're used to understanding karma at a personal level. But he suggested that maybe there's such a thing as a community having a collective karma, or perhaps a country as having a national karma. And certainly we see swings, not just in the United States, but in other countries as well. We see similar swings in the attitudes or moods of the electorates in those countries. And what we see happening here is not unique. What we see happening here is happening also in several other countries, and in coming years we'll probably see more of it happening and not less, because we see these natural curves, flows, the pendulum shifting back and forth. Natural. Karma. The law of karma is so fundamental. Basically, everything happens for a reason. Nothing happens, you would say, apne aap. Nothing happens just like that. Everything happens for a reason. So we're rational people. What's about to happen may not be to your liking, but is it happening for a reason or not? Okay, so that's step one to dealing with our expectations. And this especially addresses people who have that sense of fear or dread with regard to what's about to happen further. The law of karma is just one of many, many natural laws that governs the universe. Laws of nature would include the laws of karma. The laws of nature and the laws of karma are the fundamental intelligence that makes our universe continue. The laws of nature and the laws of karma ensure that electrons always circle every atom. By the way, just for fun, I like a little bit of science. So think about that positively charged nucleus with the electron flying around. Wouldn't the electron want to kind of dive bomb? Negative is attracted to positive. So wouldn't it want to spiral in? And if it did spiral in, it would, every atom in your body would suddenly, if that happened to every atom in your body, we would all just dissolve. Or the other option, if that electron is spinning so fast, wouldn't it zip off into infinity? There is an incredibly fine balance between the mass and momentum of that electron and the attractive charge between the electron and nucleus. It is so fine-tuned. Scientists, again, are amazed again and again when they find this fine-tuning in the universe. There are many examples of this. Scientists have, I forget the number, I think more than a dozen what they consider fundamental parameters. And they say, like I've just given the example of the balance between the mass and momentum of that electron and the electrostatic attraction. That's all measured in mathematics. And scientists have identified more than a dozen such mathematical relationships. And these are so finely balanced that if any one of these fundamental parameters were changed by 1%, this universe would not exist. That's interesting. Think of it. A dozen finely tuned parameters that if they were off just the tiniest little bit, we wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation. There would be no Earth. There would be no universe as something would be there, but not as we understand the universe to be. This fine-tuning of the universe suggests an amazing intelligence because of which the universe exists. And in Advaita Vedanta, we understand that amazing, intelligent order of the cosmos. We understand it as an expression of Ishvara's intelligence, God's intelligence, excuse me. We see this, well, you and I, we see just a little, we see the tiniest bit of this intelligent order. Every morning, we see the sun go up. You may not look out the window, but you know the sun goes up. Every morning, you know the sun goes down every evening. So we have some sense of that intelligent order, but I think no one has a sense of it as these scientists and other highly educated. I think many medical doctors will have that same appreciation of the incredible intelligence of the cosmos, because when you start considering the complexity of the human body and its ability to, first of all, your body is made up of billions and billions of individual cells. Each of those individual cells are individual living things. A cell is a living thing. So these living things somehow get together and form colonies. Some of the colonies form our skin and flesh. Some of the colonies form our bones. Of course, we're not born from colonies of cells. We're born through more science, cellular division driven by DNA. How's all of that? It's amazing. It's mind-boggling how our bodies, and the most complex part of us is our brains. How this all comes together is just spectacularly complex. Once again, if anything is off by 1%, forget it. Imagine 1% of your genes getting fried. The results could be very unpredictable, shall we say. And one more factor, just to put in, again, things that I think medical professionals will be more attuned to than many of us, and something we take for granted, the ability of our bodies to heal. If you get a cut, think of how complicated it is for that cut to get healed. And healed, if it's not a deep cut, after a couple of weeks or months, you can't even tell where you were cut. That is, sorry for my 1960s language, that's mind-blowing. That's where the term came from, in the 1960s. Anyway, the point here, I hope, is very clear, that the world in which we live and live our lives day after day is permeated by this incredible intelligence. My guru called it Ishvara's intelligent order. By calling it Ishvara's intelligent order, he was asking us to shift our perspective away from seeing the world in a purely mechanical way, because certainly scientists will, and even perhaps some medical professionals might see all of this in a very mechanical way, and no doubt, it's all explained through science, through math, through all kinds of scientific principles. Yes, we understand there is a mechanical basis for everything we experience, but the precision in which this mechanical universe has come together and functions suggests something more than randomness. It suggests intention. Intention. In the Vedas, we find a statement in several Upanishads, so kamayata bahusyam meti, where Ishvara has a kamayata, desire. And we have to look at that word. In fact, that's the next topic on our list here. Desire. But not a desire, so Ishvara has a desire. Ishvara has a desire? You're thinking only human beings have a desire. This is not a human desire. Your desire is after you go home, you're going to have a nice lunch. That's your... Fine, that's good. Ishvara's desire is bahusyama. May I become many. May the universe come forth. That's Ishvara's desire. Your desire is based on hunger, I suppose. Ishvara's desire is not based on any kind of hunger or sense of absence, sense of lack. Ishvara's desire, in quotation marks, is based on fullness, creativity, the natural expression of fullness. Bahusyama. May I become many. May the universe become manifest. So, through Ishvara's intelligence, this universe becomes manifest. Now, how does that's a wonderful, wonderful teaching of Advaita Vedanta, but how does it apply to January 20th? Whatever happens on the 20th and 21st and 22nd, I have a feeling those first few days will be very interesting. And by the way, I'm not taking sides here, right? I'm being very careful not to take sides. I said interesting. That's like the American interesting. When somebody says, how did you like my food? Oh, it was very interesting. All right. So whatever happens in 3 weeks will be exceedingly interesting, but it will all be an unfoldment of Ishvara's intelligent order. Huh. Who are we to argue with Ishvara? Now, this isn't a plea for passivity. Please don't misunderstand me. This is a suggestion that it's time for us to grow up spiritually, as it were, to deal with reality as it is, instead of wanting reality to conform to our expectations. Think about a 2-year-old expects the world to conform to her needs, right? She wants another cookie. Mom says no more cookies. And this girl melts down in tears because she can't have another cookie. She expects the world to behave the way she wants. Do you think some people might be like 2-year-olds with regard to January 20th? Hey, it's the reality of what's happening. It may not be what you prefer, but it is the reality of what's happening, and shouldn't we be a little bit more mature in how we handle such things and not melt down, and especially not fear and dread the future? Since what is happening follows Ishvara's order, we can be secure in the fact that however it evolves, it will evolve in a reasonable way. And let me just be very clear, and again, addressing those of you who dread. If the administration proposes something which is absolutely self-destructive, which is possible, we don't know, don't worry. There are enough. In fact, one of the things, this is a complete aside. I don't know why this just popped into my mind, but the Constitution of this country and the foresight of the founding fathers of this country, somehow they got it right. And the Constitution of this country seems to work really well, and has worked really well for a couple hundred years, and is going to continue working well for the future. There's most in civics classes they talk about checks and balances in the government. They're present and they're working. Maybe they're not working as well as they could, but they're present. And I feel that according to checks and balances, which are in the Constitution, and according to Ishvara's order, there's nothing to fear. Whatever it is, it'll work itself out. Everything works itself out. Think of times in your life where you've gotten into a huge mess, something went terribly wrong, and you had huge problems you had to deal with. Well, here you sit today, and you dealt with those problems long ago, and you're fine. So the point is, according to Ishvara's order, yes, problems will arise, huge problems will arise, and get resolved. So, if we understand this through the lens of Vedanta, understanding what is unfolding in Washington, D.C. and elsewhere is unfolding according to Ishvara's order, we can stop being like 2-year-olds expecting the universe to conform to our expectations. It's normal to have expectations, but the 2-year-old melts down when her expectations aren't met. You need not melt down when your expectations aren't met. It's normal to have expectations, but to know that our expectations, we may find that we're anticipating something good, and it's not going to be as good as we expected. Or we're anticipating something horrible, and we'll find it's not. Whatever you anticipate, it won't turn out like that. Because none of us are very good at predicting the future. This is Vedantic wisdom. It is to accept reality on its own terms without superimposing our needs and wants and desire on it. The world doesn't exist for your individual enjoyment. We are all part of this incredibly complex organism. If we can think of the universe almost as a living organism, and certainly an intelligent organism, we are all part of it. So here is the Vedantic wisdom. Whatever happens, happens for a reason. Whatever happens, happens according to Ishvara's intelligent order. Whatever happens is just a fact, and it's okay. If we're not 2-year-olds, whatever happens, happens, as we said, because there is a reason, because it's all part of Ishvara's order. And if what is happening doesn't meet our personal preferences, that's life. And this is where we have to grow up. When you were born, were you given a certificate that says whatever happens is going to happen for your benefit? You're silly, right? We're born into a world where, some things are to your liking and some things are not to your liking. We're mature enough to handle that. And these teachings of Vedanta are exceedingly powerful in helping you come to that mature perspective. You can be wise in the sense that when your expectations are not met, you need not be disappointed, you need not be fearful, you just accept it as a fact. A mature, I think we'll close this up in just a minute. But here's a surprising, actually it's a strong memory of mine. When Puja Swami Tadatmananda was describing an enlightened person, and he described an enlightened person in a very unconventional way. He said, his exact words, an enlightened person is an objective person. That's very unusual. An enlightened person is an objective person. What do you mean by objective? You see the world as it is, and you don't superimpose your own needs and desires and preferences on that world. You accept reality unconditionally as it is. And Advaita Vedanta empowers you to do that. And just one last thing we have to include here. When I say that Vedanta empowers you to accept reality as it is, that can never be used to support passivity. So to say, well, what's happening in Washington, what can I do? I just give up. And I'm never, or I don't know, I doubt anyone would come to this conclusion, but suppose someone says, I'm never going to vote again. I don't think anyone would come to that conclusion, but suppose. In fact, all of that is contrary to the teachings of Vedanta, because if you accept reality as it is, reality happens to include you and your responsibilities. Are you part of the world? Yes. As an individual person living in the world, do you bear responsibilities at every level? You bear a responsibility as a citizen, I won't say citizen, as a resident of this country. You bear a responsibility. As a resident of your city or town, you bear a responsibility. As a member of your society, you bear a responsibility. If you consider yourself Hindu, as a Hindu, you bear a responsibility. And as a mother, father, son, daughter, you bear a responsibility. At every level, we bear these responsibilities. So Vedanta empowers us not just to accept situations as they are, but it empowers us to accept our responsibilities as well. So we're all in this together, and the future of this country depends on us all. Not as, the sum total of all of us in this country will determine its future. So we all have a responsibility then to remain engaged. Sometimes when we get a big disappointment in life, we disengage. I don't want anything to do with this anymore. Or that person who says, I'll never vote again. That is a denial of our responsibility. So, this ends up being karma yoga, right? We all bear a certain responsibility. We have a duty. We all have swadharma, our individual responsibilities. And to accept reality as it is doesn't mean that we ignore swadharma, our personal responsibilities. So, for January 20th, in an odd way, even though the outcome of the election is not what I would have preferred, I look forward. I think it'll be very entertaining. And by the way, whatever side you're on, it is kind of fascinating to see how this plays out. You have to admit that it's a pretty unlikely situation. A lot of strange things had to converge in order for this outcome to arise. So I think we're all mature enough, we're all wise enough here to accept reality as it is, not to have huge expectations of how wonderful it will be, nor to have dread and fear of how terrible it will be. It won't be so great, and it won't be so terrible. It might be interesting. So this is a Vedantic perspective on politics in the United States. I hope that was a relevant message, and I think, given the fact that so many people have talked to me about this, I hope it was relevant for us all. So, as we come to the end of my list of things to talk about, first of all, I really want to. I pray that for all of you in your families, with your family members, friends, all your loved ones, I hope the year brings many, many, many wonderful things to you. And without doubt, with Ishwara's blessings, many good things are ahead in the coming year for us all. I also want to thank all of you, and this is the one time of the year that I take the opportunity to express my gratitude because we're sitting here today. We have this lovely, simple but lovely ashram we can come to and enjoy, come meet as a group and have these classes. All of this is because of your dedication and in particular, your generosity. Our benefactors and patrons and so many, all of you, are donating money to handle the expenses of the ashram, and I consider myself so blessed that I no longer have to come out here and ask you for money. When was the last time I asked for money? And that's because of your generosity. I consider that an incredible blessing. The fact that you have shouldered the responsibility for taking care of the financial needs of our ashram. Also, you have, many of you are engaged in different volunteer services, seva, here at the ashram. So you've also shouldered the responsibility for running the ashram and for taking care of everything, for keeping things clean, for making things work. Lately, the big problem has been replacing light bulbs. So if you don't replace light bulbs, we'll come in here and it'll be pretty dark. So anyway, a lot of maintenance and other work has to be done, and it gets done with the help of volunteers. As you know, we have 0 paid staff, which is also one reason I don't have to ask for money. We've kept our expenses very low, and again, you've been very generous in handling all of that. Okay. Here's a very happy announcement for the new year, and that is we're starting a new meditation program on Wednesday evenings. Our weekends are already crowded with programs. So on Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m., twice a month, on the first Wednesday of each month, we will have a musical meditation, different kind of chants, some mantras. Stotras are beautiful, Sanskrit stotras. Long ago, we used to meet regularly to recite those stotras. So it'll be in a meditative mode, not for this. The purpose is not to recite stotras. The purpose is to recite stotras in a meditative manner and use all of that and mantras for the sake of meditation. That will occur on the first Wednesday of each month. And then on the third Wednesday of each month is an advanced meditation. We had this program long ago, all pre-pandemic, I suppose. Before the pandemic, we also met to have a meditation for those who already know how to meditate, and we can take it a step further. So more advanced applications of meditation, more advanced meditation techniques. When I say advanced, compared to our Saturday morning meditations. So if through our Saturday morning programs, you have some meditation techniques that work well for you, you are then prepared and ready for the advanced meditation. So these new programs, as we said, musical meditation on the first Wednesday and advanced meditation on the third Wednesday. Of course, we'll be announcing all of this. So we will begin all this in the new year in January itself. I just want to remind you to check your email before coming here. We send out these program announcements to announce not only programs, but to announce program cancellations. So at this time of year, sometimes we have bad weather and classes will be canceled. Sometimes there's a new problem, not only the weather out there, but the weather in here. Sometimes I wake up so dizzy, I just can't teach. So check your email before coming. Obviously, if you haven't signed up for those emails, do so on our website. I'm also very happy to say, though, that Vasanti is starting to fill in for me. There are some mornings when I think I can I wake up and a little bit dizzy, and then I get more and more and more dizzy. So at the very last minute, we have to cancel. So in those occasions, instead of canceling the class, Vasanti will fill in for me. And by the way, she is, you have no idea how qualified she is. She began her study of Vedanta with Swami Tadatmananda in Chennai in 1990s, 80s? 1980s. And then since 2000, she's been my student here. So add those numbers up, that's a lot of study. She also, I have to say, among all of my students, no one has mastered Sanskrit like her. So she can, when she's teaching you from Shastra, she's not faking it. It's right there with her. So I think we can look forward then. Not looking forward to dizzy days, that's not, but certainly we can look forward to having Vasanti teach here more often. I think that'll be a great thing. Okay, we will end our program here. In just a moment, we'll end with our short prayers. After those prayers, there are flowers at the altar. If you like to go to the altar and offer those flowers, you're welcome to do so. Also, we have prasad to give. If you like to receive prasad and exchange New Year's greetings, I'll be sitting here afterwards. And again, many, many blessings to you all. May Ishvara bless us all with a wonderful, wonderful New Year. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet Asato Ma Satkamaya Tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat.